Today we're taking a look at the technology in the 2019 Mercedes-Benz GLC, in particular the COMAND infotainment system in the dashboard. Now the standard setup is going to be a 7-inch screen, but because we've got the upgraded navigation system, we have a larger 8.5-inch display. Now when the car is turned off, this screen looks huge, but when you turn it on, you'll find that a lot of this tablet that's sort of poking up out of the dashboard is just bezel around what's a reasonably sized screen for a car of this size. It's actually pretty easy to view when you're driving, and it stays out of your line of sight, which is good. Now, one of the interesting things about COMAND is that there's no home screen per se. Instead, you interact with it via this bar along the top of the screen. Now, you get that bar to show up by either swiping up on this touchpad or clicking up on this control wheel. You can use either one. It can be a little bit confusing if you jump back and forth between the two, but I find that it's better just to pick one and stick with it, and you'll be a happy driver. Now along the top you have your major sections, which includes navigation, which is where your maps are. The maps look pretty good. You'd think they'd look a little bit more dated because this is an older infotainment system, but Benz has done a pretty good job of updating this software. We've also got radio, where you'll choose between your satellite radio and terrestrial HD, AM, and FM radio stations. The next section is going to be media. That's going to be where you control your digital media sources, including Bluetooth audio streaming, your CD slot, which is interesting to see on a 2019 car, as well as USB and SD card connectivity. Phone acts pretty much like you expect a Bluetooth hands-free system to work, and the vehicle menu is where you're going to adjust various things like your vehicle settings, things like how long the lights stay on when you leave the car. Here's where you can also adjust the individual setting for your drive modes. If you want sporty suspension but really soft steering, you're going to do that there. And finally, we've got energy flow and consumption. That's where you're going to monitor your fuel economy and how the hybrid powertrain on this plug-in model is operating. Overall, I find that it's a pretty easy to use system once you've spent a lot of time with it. And I've spent about a decade hanging out with various iterations of this COMAND sort of organizational structure. But it's not exactly the most intuitive. If this is your first Benz, you're gonna wanna sit in the driveway and figure this thing out, particularly because there are a lot of inconsistencies in how COMAND organizes things. For example, you go into the radio and you want to switch between satellite radio and FM radio. Well, to do that, you're going to click down to the band icon on the lower bar and you'll switch between your different bands there. However, if you're listening to Bluetooth audio and you decide you want to listen to a CD, you can't click down to the lower band. You have to do a drop down on the top bar. That brings you to a completely different screen that allows you to choose between your various onboard digital media sources. You would think that Benz would do some sort of standardization there so that it's always the same movement when you're choosing your audio source. Another nitpick that I have is relevant to some of the safety systems. You see, this vehicle has a 360 camera system equipped. A rear camera is standard, and that's going to allow you to see the area around the vehicle. But the feed from those cameras is already pretty dark in the daytime, and I found that it's almost unviewable at night, which makes it less than useful for things like parallel parking. But it's not all bad though. Yes, there are two control schemes right here, and that can be a little bit weird to deal with, but I do like that Benz puts hardware buttons right here on the dashboard that allow you to quickly jump between the different areas of the infotainment. So if you're on the vehicle screen and you want to get that map up quick, boom, one touch and you're there. I really like that. And I also like that it doesn't lock you out of address or destination entry while you're rolling, which allows the passenger to help out with inputting destinations or searching for addresses instead of just sitting there helpless or having to pull over to do such a thing. So at this point, we've seen 3 different infotainment systems in current Benz vehicles: MBUX, the whatever the S-Class has, and this older version of COMAND. We want to know, which one do you prefer? Let us know in the comments down below, and while you're there, hit the subscribe button for even more cool tech videos from the Roadshow crew.